This is the morning brief from the Economic Times.
प्यार हो या कार हो, इंश्योरेंस है जरूरी, फिर चाहे कर ले गोरी, तेरा दिल और गाड़ी चोरी। पर बंदे अच्छे
जो जिम्मेदारी निभाते हैं, जताते नहीं, उनको सुरक्षा देते हैं हम। ICICI Prudential लाइफ इंश्योरेंस, जिम्मेदारी का हमसफर।
इसीलिए LIC में हम जिंदगी के हर मोड़ पर आपके साथ हैं। LIC, जिंदगी के साथ भी, जिंदगी के बाद भी।
Many of us took fresh health insurance cover or topped up old policies after COVID-19 struck last year. But soon we realized that the fine print didn't include certain aspects of home care and hospitalization, which would drain us financially. Here's why it may have happened. So as of May 14th, health insurers received more than 14 lakh COVID claims of over rupees 23,000 crore. The volume was so large that insurance companies have started tightening norms while issuing fresh health covers. Comorbidities, mental stress, anxiety will become reason enough to exclude many of us from getting insured. I'm Devina Sengupta and you're listening to The Morning Brief. To understand why insurance firms could exclude many of us who may suffer from COVID-related illnesses, I talked to Tarun Mathur, co-founder of Policybazaar, Mahavir Chopra, founder of consumer awareness platform Beshak.org, and Ashwin Manikandan, my colleague who reports on the insurance sector for the Economic Times.
Another COVID pain that is being felt by people is medical insurance. Lots of stories of how people are suffering because they got a policy, but somehow they cannot claim this policy.
We are unfortunately in the midst of a second wave, and a wave that's coming with a lot of force of COVID-19 in the country. And I'm sure this has got you all looking back at your health insurance covers. Are you adequately covered?
Good morning and thank you for being with us on the morning brief. Mahavir, how difficult will it be for the common man to get a health insurance in India post-COVID? You know, we hear about the insurance companies and they're rifling through our comorbidities, the history of mental angst, stress-related disorders. I mean, will they even find anyone without any of these illnesses in the coming years?
Yeah, that's a pretty valid question, Devina. It's always been very difficult, right, to get health insurance for people with a bad health or a medical history. Like it's in the case of, a bad credit score. If you have a bad credit score, you are going to face difficulties in getting a loan. Similarly, if you have bad health, right, you will have difficulties in getting a good health insurance, right? People who are diagnosed with serious illnesses, mental illnesses, are the ones who are facing the maximum resistance from insurance companies. For the rest, people who have, let's say, the minor diseases, or people who are having a very, very small medical history, which is not very, very serious, they may have issues, but not that they will not get health insurance. They may have an issue with a better choice, being able to get the widest of the options in the market. That could be a challenge.
Tarun, now, what is causing the insurance companies to take this stance? I mean, why is it becoming less and less inclusive?
It's not about inclusion. I think, the wellness of a person has always been considered while taking a proposal for health insurance. And the reason is quite apparent. If you have something like a diabetes, the cost of treatment always does increase, right? I'm not saying always, but mostly does increase. And there is a calculation basis with the insurance companies charge you premium. Now, if we don't do that, and if we, let's say, have the same treatment for a person with or without diabetes, then it's not fair to the one who doesn't, right? You have to kind of make sure that your premium is covering for your treatment costs, right? Overall, that's how insurance as a concept works. As far as mental illness is concerned, see, we've always gone on the psychological aspects of mental illness, but there is a physiological manifestation of a prolonged mental illness, which is not considered. And, I think that has to be taken into consideration, because I think the seriousness about mental illness is coming into the country. So I believe the opposite. I think there is inclusion, there is understanding of all of these elements of well-being or illness, which is being considered into a health insurance proposal and being taken seriously.
you are saying that the insurance companies are becoming more inclusive, but they have to factor in a long-term impact of mental health. Ashwin, you have been extensively reporting on the changes in the insurance sector. You have been reporting that India Inc. is stepping up measures to expand insurance covers. So will corporates now have a better chance at getting the covers covering all of these issues than an individual like me going on my own and getting an insurance cover?
What we have seen over the past few months is there is an increased demand among corporates across the sector, be it retail, FMCG, e-commerce particularly. They have a basic medical insurance cover for their employees, but now the demand is to also purchase like riders like the corona specific corona coverage, especially for employees who are frontline. For them, there needs to be a more comprehensive protection in the event they get hospitalized. But at the same time, what we are also hearing from the ground is that even corporates are struggling to renew their policies, purchase new policies. So from an insurer's point of view, a group cover for a corporate it's a lucrative sort of business for them because these are salaried segment individuals, right, who are typically considered to be good quality customers. The claims burden is not as high as, say, a self-employed or a non-employed person. But even then, we are seeing that applications are getting rejected or even deferred because of this pandemic situation. We have also seen corporates being asked to purchase retail covers instead of group covers so that the underwriting, the medical checkups of all customers can be done separately rather than, through like a documentation process, which now insurers feel is not enough to assess the risks adequately.
Tarun, how much of a dent have the insurance firms taken with more and more people claiming health and life insurances due to the pandemic? Has that got anything to do with this change?
Divya, it's true that most of the insurance companies are reeling with the sheer number of claims that are coming in right now. Last year, which we commonly refer to as the first wave, about 30% of the leading insurance companies' claims were related to COVID. However, now, this time, it has already reached about 55 to 60% of all claims reported are COVID. There are two aspects to an insurance claim. There is the frequency of a claim, which is how often a claim is filed. And the second one is severity, how large the size of the claim is, which is what is the amount that has to be paid out. Now, COVID is a miscreant in both of these. So, of course, insurance companies will face a lot of losses, and I think a lot of them will not be able to maintain their current loss ratios.
Mahavir, in the post-COVID, who goes into the high-risk score and who doesn't go into the high-risk score anymore?
Who will have better pricing, who will have lower pricing, or who will be considered higher score and lower score is largely dependent on 2 or 3 things. So one is basically the medical history, the current health and lifestyle of that person, and also a lot of demography, which is basically around the occupation of the person, the location of the person, the kind of job the person is doing, whether he's doing a self-employed or he's a freelancer or he's actually working in an organization, a large organization versus a small organization. Such kind of gamut of basically criteria or proxy values are added together to come out with a score which will help an insurer define a persona and then basically come out with a pricing for those people. So what I foresee is that prices cannot be average across all kinds of people. Person sitting in a urban city with access to the best healthcare versus someone who's sitting in a smaller city with low access to really good healthcare infrastructure. The premiums can't be the same. So the way this will work is that differential premiums will be charged based on different kinds of quality of life, healthcare background, and general well-being of the person.
Tarun, why is this the case? Has it always been this case? And post-COVID, how has it changed? When you say, or when Mahavir in this case says that a profile gets created, and if I am right now, let's say from Bareilly, and I have had COVID, or my family suffered from COVID, the kind of premiums that will be charged to me for a future insurance will be very different if I happen to be the same person, but based out of Bombay, working in a large MNC.
It's actually not very tough to kind of understand this one. My dad was in the army, so we were in different places, right? We were in Delhi and we were in places like Mizoram. Now, the simple fact is that the hospitalization costs across these two cities, and I'm just talking the cities right now, and I'll get to the persona later, is very different. For example, if I get myself admitted in a Max or a Fortis or a Medanta today, for let's say a problem, and I'll tell you this is very often we see this, right? Gastroenteritis, the day cost or other treatment of let's say about 48 hours will cost me anywhere between 40 to 50,000 rupees. Back in Mizoram, it will probably cost me about 15 to 20,000 rupees. So there's a clear differentiation between two cities that is prevalent. And this we've seen in very, very remote cases in a lot of countries. People are also kind of coming down to the fact that if you live in Delhi and Mumbai and we talk about pollution, etc., the prevalent health is more at risk than say in Bareilly. And that has not get factored in as yet, but I think it will come too. So if you look at all the data that comes from the hospitals or where you look at healthcare, you will see that the number of claims for a lot of diseases are higher on the city side than they are on the smaller cities. So I think this variation has to be brought about. Why should somebody from Bareilly, where as the hospitalization cost is low, be paying the same premium as a guy who's living in Delhi? So I think risk-based pricing has always been on the cards. I think it's an evolution of product.
Tarun, one issue which we have seen a lot happening in this COVID is home care. Okay, more and more patients are opting for home ICU treatments, or as much as possible, they are not going to hospitals, not because they don't want to, but because of the lack of beds available right now in India. Do insurance companies cover that? We also have a lot of demand for COVID nurses and they are very expensive. Do insurance companies cover that? If not, are there discussions to cover these treatments as well?
Devina, domiciliary hospitalization is the jargon that is used here. It has always been there in most of the products that insurance companies sell. I don't want to comment on each and every product because I haven't done that amount of study. But if you really compare, all products that are mainline today have domiciliary hospitalization. There may be sublimits to some extent, but mostly they're covered. Also, you will notice that the clause that actually dictates this cover is that if you do not get a room in a hospital, then your domiciliary hospitalization is covered. There are some waiting periods. There are some limitations on it, and that vary from plan to plan. But I think, yes, you're right. This will now become a larger part of insurance company products because I don't think it was used very often, or it was used for the general public, so to speak. It was probably being used for somebody above the age of 65 who was bedridden, had to be treated at home. But it will, I think, find its way into all the products that are coming in now.
To understand more on the regulatory aspects of insurance and on questions like will a vaccinated person have to pay a different premium than one without the jab, I spoke to Riju Mehta, my colleague from ET Wealth, a personal finance newspaper. Riju, there is a rising concern about the premiums that one has to shell out to get an insurance which will cover COVID-related illness. Now, with inclusion of comorbidities and even mental health, stress, this means a large chunk of people may not get included. What is the take of the regulator, which is IRDAI or Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India? What is their take on this?
Okay. I don't think there's too much of a difference between an insurance company offering a regular plan or whether it is concerning COVID. They will see their underwriting clauses and then give the plan to the person. But I think it should not be too difficult to get a plan if you don't already have a plan and you don't have any, illnesses or COVID or whatever. I don't think it should be a problem. IRDAI has mandated this Corona Kavach, which is a very good standardized plan. And it covers COVID, it covers home treatment up to about rupees 5 lakh. So I think that is a very good option that people can go for who are finding it difficult to get a new health plan.
Right, but Riju, what is 5 lakh in the larger scheme of things? People are coming up with far higher hospitalization bills.
So if you already have a basic health plan which covers hospitalization and you are unable to get any other plan, then Corona Kavach is a very good option because it covers home treatment. Remember, that is very important right now. And home treatment up to 5 lakh, I would say, is a very reasonable amount right now. And if you can't get hold of anything, then this is as good an option as any other. Then.
Right. Will the regulator step in and say that there is a cap on the premiums that the insurance companies can ask for?
As it is in March, it had come out with certain guidelines saying that you cannot, randomly add features and then jack up the premium. or you cannot, modify the existing features and then make that as an excuse to increase the premium. So if at all you're adding features for related to COVID, then you have to put it as an add-on or an optional cover, which means that the customer can easily see how much more he is paying.
Right. Tell me something, because vaccination is such an important drive right now in the country. Is there going to be any difference to me tomorrow if in my premiums or in the kind of insurance that I get, if I get vaccinated?
If you are in a better state to grapple with this illness, then definitely the premium should be lower, because as it is, most of the insurance companies are laying a lot of stress on wellness and good health, which means that if you are in good health, you haven't claimed any claim bonuses, then you will get a very highly discounted premium.
My final question to you, Riju, is there are these old health insurance plans that we have. And what is the difference between the old health insurance plans and the new ones, keeping COVID in mind?
See, the old insurance plans, the indemnity insurance plan, they would all cover hospitalization. So whether you had COVID or XYZ disease, the hospitalization would be covered. Now, the difference now is that because of the lack of hospital beds, the home treatment is being stressed upon a lot. And this is what the insurers are not, many of them are not offering right now. I think the exception is ICICI Lombard, which has just started that feature. But by and large, a lot of companies are not offering that. Or the very new ones, the recently introduced plans, say in the past year or so, or even in this year, they will carry that option of home treatment.
Riju did clarify many of my doubts, but I wanted to know more on the home ICU covers and how expensive will our health premiums get. Mahavir, Tarun and Ashwin gave me the details. Mahavir, for a customer right now going ahead with a domiciliary hospitalization and even things like PPE suits, medical kits, COVID nurses, these aspects are becoming very expensive. Hospital bills have led to financial ruins as well. Will we see our premiums becoming more and more expensive?
Currently, the insurance plans that most of the insurance companies offer did not have covers for the cost that you mentioned, the special cost related to the pandemic and the hospitalization that is required for it. Most of the insurers have stepped up and basically brought in, additional add-ons which can help you cover these additional costs. Like, for example, the costs which are related to PPE kits and the costs which are related to any kind of non-medical consumables, which is basically all the stuff that a hospital uses, which is like masks and those kind of things, can be covered by buying an additional add-on, which is called a consumables add-on, right? So insurers are stepping up. Insurers are bringing plans which will, help customers get covers that they are looking for. Of course, like you mentioned, prices are going to increase, largely because when you have to give better covers and increase the scope of a policy, definitely there will be an impact on the pricing.
Mahavir, when you say prices will increase, you mean it's going to get more expensive for me, for example, a common man, to get an insurance cover. Can you tell us, for the listeners, what will be the price point increase?
At any given point in time, do expect a 10 to 20% increase as a minimum on health insurance, given that there is no cap on healthcare inflation in the country. If you look at it, hospitals are not regulated, and if you look at overall the way insurance is bought in India, is bought just before you feel that there is a responsibility and you need to buy insurance. All this put together, having a pool of customers which are more vulnerable to get ill is also a factor which leads to the premiums being very high. So as many younger people buy insurance, as many healthier people buy insurance, premiums can be controlled. Given the fact that in India, health insurance is not mandatory, it's not even considered to be like a check when someone, let's say, gets employed. It's mostly people depend on group policies or corporate employer policies. Plus the fact that hospitals are not regulated in the country. And also the need for the additional covers, like we talked about mental illness, we talked about PPE kits, prices are going to increase. So expect around close to between 10 to 30% increase in price is what I would estimate. Obviously, it's a guesstimate.
Right. Tarun, my final question to you is, what are the challenges you foresee? Are Indians not aware enough about insurance covers? And also, second point is, We go for a blanket cover, but often we don't read the finer points. The fine print is not read. So, and then when a medical emergency comes, there's a lot of challenges involved. Can this be solved? Can the insurance companies in any which way become more helpful for the customers?
That's a tough one, Devina. On both counts, I think it's a very tough question. Why do people not buy health insurance? It beats me. Because, if you read the newspapers today or you go to the news, all the time there's only talk about how there is, there are no hospital beds. If there are hospital beds, there's a lot of, treatment happening. People of different age groups are in hospital. But when it comes to paying for these expenses, nobody's really worried, or maybe they are. Of course, health insurance sales are up by a lot, and we are seeing that surge in sales. But given the size of our country, why are more and more people not investing in it? We've often believed that two things drive people to buy insurance. It's either love or fear. Now you've got both playing right now on people's minds. And yet I don't see that our penetration in terms of health insurance, even for those who can afford it, is more than about 10 to 15%. The insurance companies are trying their best to make the features clear to customers. But there are comparison portals. There is so much material to study from. You can always talk to an advisor of an insurance company or to anybody who's selling them, and you'll get enough clarity for you to be able to choose. But right now, the way I look at it, you don't need to go for the finer points. If you have a simple insurance plan, that does it. I think let's just get to that stage before we get into the finer elements.
Ashwin, is India one of the toughest markets to claim insurance? And how has it fared during the COVID times?
Over the years, we have seen that insurers have become proactive settling claims, but during the pandemic times, this has not been the experience of most people, and data is there to back this up as well. About 22,000 crores worth of claims have been reported at insurance companies. Now, if we look at the average claim size, which is the treatment cost that a patient has to typically endure, that is coming to around 1.56 lakhs per patient. That is the claim that is being reported at an insurance company. Now, the average settlement size, the payout that an insurance company is processing for its customer, it is about 95,000 rupees. This means that 60% of the treatment cost is being covered, and the remaining 40% has to come from the pocket of the insured policyholder. This could be because the treatment protocols are not standardized across different states, different hospitals. The consumables, overhead consumables like PPE kits are not under the coverage of insurance company, which could be leading to this disparity, but it's an issue which needs to be resolved as soon as possible.
Thank you, Tarun, Mahavir, Ashwin and Riju, for detailing out how the insurance sector, reeling under many claims, is also finding out ways to survive and give us adequate cover at the same time. However, if the regulator does not cap premiums, many Indians will end up fending for themselves as the pandemic rages. I'm Devina Sengupta and you've been listening to The Morning Brief. This episode was edited by Anjali Venugopalan and coordinated by Shashwat Mohanty. I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode. Do send in your feedback to The Morning Brief at timesgroup.com and share the episode on your social media networks. The Morning Brief airs every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. Thank you for listening and have a nice day ahead. All clips used in this podcast belong to their respective owners. You can find the credits in the description.